Have you ever woken up in a cold sweat after dreaming about death? Your heart racing, your mind filled with dread and anxiety. Most people immediately assume the worst. They believe that dreaming about death is a sign of impending doom, a harbinger of tragedy, or a premonition of something terrible about to happen in their lives. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about death dreams is wrong? What if the reality is far more nuanced, far more psychological, and far more fascinating than any superstition could ever suggest? Welcome to the hidden world of dream interpretation, where the symbols that haunt us in the night are not messages from the universe about our demise, but rather windows into our subconscious mind. The fear of death is one of the most primal human emotions. It is hardwired into our DNA as a survival mechanism. Throughout our entire lives, we are constantly aware, on some level, that our existence is finite. We will eventually die. This existential dread bubbles beneath the surface of our consciousness, and it manifests in our dreams in ways that can be deeply unsettling. But here is the crucial point that most people miss. When we dream about death, we are rarely ever dreaming about actual, literal death. Instead, we are dreaming about transformation, change, endings, and new beginnings. We are processing our fears, our anxieties, and our emotional struggles in the symbolic language that only the sleeping mind can speak. In this comprehensive exploration, we will journey deep into the world of dreams. We will uncover the psychological principles behind why we dream about death. We will learn what these dreams actually mean, and we will discover how to interpret them in ways that can genuinely help us live better, more purposeful lives. So if you have ever had a death dream and wondered what it meant, if you have ever woken up terrified and spent the whole day feeling unsettled, then this video is for you. Buckle up, because we are about to transform the way you understand your dreams forever. Let us begin by understanding the fundamental psychology behind why our minds create dreams about death in the first place. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, believed that dreams are messages from our unconscious mind. He argued that every symbol in a dream has meaning, and that death dreams, specifically, are rarely about literal death. Instead, Jung suggested that death in dreams represents the end of something, a transformation, or a transition from one phase of life to another. When you dream about death, your subconscious mind is often processing a major change in your life. Perhaps you have ended a relationship. Perhaps you have lost a job. Perhaps you are about to enter a new chapter of your life, like moving to a new city or starting a new career. The death in your dream is a symbolic representation of these endings, not a prediction of your actual death. Sigmund Freud, another titan of psychology, had a different perspective on death dreams. Freud believed that death dreams were expressions of repressed wishes or unconscious desires. He argued that we sometimes wish harm upon others or ourselves on an unconscious level, and that these wishes manifest in our dreams. However, modern psychology has largely moved away from Freud's more cynical interpretations. Today, most dream psychologists agree that death dreams are primarily about processing fear, anxiety, and significant life transitions. The brain during REM sleep, which is when most vivid dreaming occurs, is in a unique state of consciousness. The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking and reasoning, is less active during REM sleep. Meanwhile, the limbic system, which processes emotions and memories, is highly active. This is why dreams can feel so emotionally intense and logically bizarre at the same time. Your brain is essentially processing emotions and memories in a way that bypasses your rational mind. Death dreams often occur during periods of high stress or anxiety in our waking lives. They can be triggered by news of someone else's death, by health concerns, by major life changes, or simply by the accumulated stress and pressure of daily life. The dream itself is your brain's way of trying to process and make sense of these difficult emotions and experiences. It is a coping mechanism, not a warning sign. Understanding this fundamental truth is the key to interpreting your death dreams correctly. Instead of waking up in panic and assuming the worst, you can wake up with curiosity and introspection. You can ask yourself, what is actually changing in my life right now? What am I anxious about? What transitions am I going through? By shifting your perspective in this way, you can transform your death dreams from sources of terror into sources of psychological insight and personal growth. Now, let us explore some of the most common death dream scenarios and what they actually mean. Understanding these patterns will help you interpret your own dreams more accurately. The first and perhaps most common death dream is when you dream about your own death. This can feel absolutely terrifying. You might dream that you are dying from an illness, in an accident, or from some other cause. But here is what this dream actually means. It almost never means that you are literally going to die. Instead, dreaming about your own death typically represents a major life transition or ending. Maybe you are ending a phase of your life. Maybe you are making a significant change in your identity. Maybe you are leaving behind old beliefs, old patterns, or old versions of yourself that no longer serve you. Perhaps you have been the quiet, shy person your whole life, and now you are becoming more confident and outgoing. That old version of you is dying, metaphorically speaking, and your brain is processing this transformation through a death dream. The emotional intensity of these dreams reflects how significant this transformation feels to your unconscious mind. The dream is not warning you that you will physically perish. Rather, it is acknowledging the gravity of the internal change you are undergoing. The second common scenario is dreaming about the death of a loved one. This can be even more distressing than dreaming about your own death, because it carries an emotional weight that is particularly heavy. However, dreaming about the death of a loved one rarely means that person is actually going to die. Instead, it often represents a change in your relationship with that person. Perhaps you are going through a phase where you are becoming less dependent on them. Perhaps you are setting new boundaries. Perhaps the relationship itself is transforming in some way. It could also represent aspects of that person that you admire or reject, and your brain is processing these feelings about them. Sometimes, dreaming about the death of a loved one reflects changes in how you see them. You might have idealized them in the past, but now you are seeing them more realistically, with both their strengths and weaknesses. This symbolic death in your dream represents the death of the idealized image you had of them, not their actual physical death. The third common scenario is dreaming about multiple people dying or a mass death event. This can feel apocalyptic and terrifying, but this type of dream often relates to feelings of powerlessness or anxiety about events in the world that feel beyond your control. Maybe you are anxious about global events, climate change, politics, or social upheaval. Your brain is processing this collective anxiety through a symbolic representation of death and destruction. These mass death dreams often occur during times of social or environmental crisis. Your mind is trying to work through feelings of helplessness about large-scale problems that you cannot solve individually. The dream is not predicting the end of the world. Rather, it is reflecting your internal emotional response to the state of the world around you. The fourth scenario is dreaming that you are attending your own funeral. This is a particularly poignant dream that often relates to feelings of invisibility, irrelevance, or a desire to be noticed. It can also represent a part of yourself that feels dead or dormant, and you are mourning the loss of that aspect of yourself. Perhaps you had dreams or talents that you have abandoned, and your subconscious mind is processing the loss of these things through this dream. When you attend your own funeral in a dream, you are observing how others react to your death, which often reflects how you feel you are being perceived in your waking life. Are people mourning you deeply? Are they indifferent? Are they relieved? These emotional responses in the dream reveal something about your feelings of self-worth and significance. The fifth common scenario is dreaming that you are watching someone else die without being able to help them. This dream often reflects feelings of helplessness, guilt, or anxiety about situations in your waking life where you feel unable to prevent negative outcomes. Perhaps you have a loved one who is struggling, and you feel powerless to help them. Perhaps you are anxious about situations at work where you feel you lack control. Your brain is creating a symbolic representation of this powerlessness through the death dream. These dreams are particularly common among caregivers, healthcare workers, and people in positions of responsibility. The inability to save someone in your dream mirrors your feelings of powerlessness in waking situations. Understanding these common patterns is crucial because it allows you to move past the surface-level fear and get to the deeper psychological meaning. When you can identify which type of death dream you are having, you can begin to understand what underlying emotion or situation your brain is trying to process. While psychology provides one lens for interpreting death dreams, it is important to also consider the spiritual and cultural dimensions of these experiences. Throughout history and across cultures, death dreams have held special significance. In many indigenous cultures, death dreams are seen as communications with the spirit world or with ancestors. Some traditions believe that death dreams are visits from the other side, messages from those who have passed on, or glimpses of future events. While we cannot scientifically verify these beliefs, it is important to recognize that for many people, the spiritual interpretation of death dreams feels deeply meaningful and relevant to their lives. The healing power of these spiritual frameworks should not be dismissed simply because they cannot be scientifically proven. Many people find that interpreting their death dreams through a spiritual lens brings them comfort, closure, and a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. In Christianity and many Western religious traditions, death dreams might be interpreted through the lens of judgment, resurrection, or spiritual transformation. Some people interpret death dreams as signs of spiritual awakening or rebirth, connected to the religious concept of dying to one's old self and being born anew in faith. The image of resurrection in Christian tradition parallels the psychological concept of rebirth and transformation. When you die to your old self and are born anew, whether in a spiritual or psychological sense, you are undergoing a fundamental transformation of identity and consciousness. In Buddhism and Hindu traditions, death dreams often relate to concepts of reincarnation, karma, and the cycle of death and rebirth. These traditions teach that death is not an ending but a transition, and so death dreams might be understood as reflections on one's spiritual journey and transformation. The idea that death is a transition rather than an ending is profoundly comforting to many people. It suggests that the death symbolized in your dreams is not an ending but a passage to something new. On traditional Chinese medicine and philosophy, death in dreams is often associated with the concept of yin and yang, the balance between opposing forces. Death represents a completion, an ending that allows for a new beginning, and a necessary part of the natural cycle. In this worldview, death is not feared or avoided, but understood as a natural and necessary part of existence. Just as night must follow day, death must follow life. But within this cycle, there is constant transformation and renewal. In Islamic tradition, dreams are considered to be one of the ways that Allah communicates with humans. Death dreams might be interpreted as divine messages, though this interpretation would vary depending on the specific context and details of the dream. The Prophet Muhammad is said to have valued dreams as a form of spiritual insight. Many Islamic scholars interpret death dreams as messages about spiritual purification or preparation for the afterlife. The point is that, across cultures and spiritual traditions, death dreams are rarely interpreted as literal predictions of death. Instead, they are understood as meaningful symbols of transformation, transition, and spiritual evolution. If you have a spiritual or religious framework that you use to interpret the world, it can be valuable to apply that framework to your death dreams as well. Your spiritual beliefs and your psychological experiences are not in conflict. They can work together to provide a richer, more complete understanding of your dreams. One particularly important context for understanding death dreams is when they occur in the aftermath of trauma or grief. If you have recently lost someone, if you have experienced a traumatic event, or if you are grieving a major loss in your life, death dreams take on a different character. They are not just random symbols created by your sleeping mind. They are direct expressions of your emotional pain and your brain's attempt to process overwhelming experiences. Grief is a profound psychological process. When we lose someone we love, our brain has to adjust to a reality where that person no longer exists in our lives. We have to reprogram our daily routines, our expectations, and our understanding of who we are in relation to that person. This is an enormous task, and grief can manifest in many ways. One of the most common ways that grief manifests is through dreams about the deceased person. You might dream that they are alive again. You might dream that you are with them. You might dream about their death, reliving the trauma of their actual death, or imagining alternative scenarios. These dreams are your brain's way of continuing to process the loss and maintain a connection with the person you have. The grief process involves several stages, and dreams are often a significant part of that process. In the early stages of grief, dreams might be quite disturbing, as your brain tries to reconcile the reality of the loss. Over time, dreams about the deceased often become more peaceful and comforting. Many bereaved people report that their dreams of the deceased gradually shift from nightmares to pleasant memories and visits. This natural progression in dreams reflects the healing that is taking place in your heart and mind. For people who have experienced trauma, death dreams can be even more intense. If you have witnessed death, if you have been near death yourself, or if you have experienced any kind of serious threat to your life or safety, your nervous system remains on high alert. Your brain becomes hypervigilant, constantly scanning for danger. Death dreams in this context are often replays or variations of the traumatic event. They are nightmares in a clinical sense, and they can be a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. If you are experiencing recurring death nightmares after a traumatic event, it is important to seek professional help. Trauma-informed therapy, such as EMDR or cognitive processing therapy, can be highly effective in helping your brain process traumatic memories and reduce the frequency and intensity of nightmares. The important point to understand is that when death dreams occur in the context of grief or trauma, they are not random or meaningless. They are direct expressions of real emotional pain that your brain is struggling to process. These dreams are actually a sign that you are grieving or healing, not a sign of mental illness. However, if these dreams become overwhelming, or if they significantly interfere with your ability to sleep or function during the day, professional support can be invaluable to truly understand death dreams. We need to look at the neuroscience of dreams and how the brain works during sleep. Dreams occur primarily during REM sleep, which is called rapid eye movement sleep, because the eyes move rapidly beneath closed eyelids during this phase. REM sleep is when we experience our most vivid and emotionally intense dreams. During REM sleep, the brain is remarkably active. Brain imaging studies show that the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking, planning, and self-awareness, has reduced activity during REM sleep. Meanwhile, areas of the brain associated with emotion, memory, and sensory processing show increased activity. This neurological state explains why dreams can feel so emotionally intense and yet logically bizarre. You might dream that you are flying or that you can breathe underwater, and in the dream, these things feel completely normal. You might dream that you are having a conversation with someone who is dead, and in the dream, you accept this as reality without questioning it. This is because the parts of your brain responsible for logic and reality testing are less active. However, the parts of your brain responsible for emotion and memory are highly active. Dreams serve several important functions. One function is memory consolidation. During REM sleep, your brain is processing and filing away the experiences and information from your day. It is integrating new learning into your long-term memory and deciding what to keep and what to discard. This is why studying before sleep can improve memory retention. Your brain is literally reorganizing and filing away information while you sleep. Another function is emotional regulation. By dreaming, your brain is processing emotional experiences and regulating your emotional responses. When you have a vivid, emotional dream, you are essentially rehearsing emotional responses to situations in a safe environment. This helps your brain develop better emotional regulation skills in your waking life. A third function is threat simulation. Some evolutionary psychologists argue that dreaming allows your brain to practice responding to threats and dangers in a safe, simulated environment. If this theory is correct, then death dreams might serve an evolutionary purpose by allowing your brain to rehearse dealing with existential threats and dangers. In this view, death dreams are not malfunctions of the brain, but rather a sophisticated coping mechanism that has evolved to help us deal with our deepest fears. The content of your dreams is influenced by your current concerns, your recent experiences, your emotional state, and your overall mental health. If you are anxious or stressed during the day, you are more likely to have negative or anxiety-filled dreams at night. If you have been thinking about death or have been exposed to information about death, your brain is more likely to incorporate death into your dreams. This is why people often report having death dreams after watching a disturbing news story or after a death in the community. Your brain is processing the information you have encountered and attempting to integrate it into your understanding of the world. Understanding the neuroscience of dreams helps us see that dreams are not mystical messages from the universe or predictions of the future. They are the product of your brain's normal neurological processes during sleep. But this does not make them unimportant or meaningless. In fact, understanding what your dreams reveal about your current concerns, anxieties, and emotional state can be incredibly valuable for your psychological well-being and personal growth. Now that we have explored the psychology, spirituality, and neuroscience of death dreams, let us talk about how you can interpret your own death dreams. The key to dream interpretation is understanding that you are the ultimate expert on your own dreams. No one else can tell you what your dream means more authoritatively than you can, because no one else knows your life, your fears, your relationships, and your experiences as intimately as you do. That said, there are some tools and techniques that can help you interpret your dreams more effectively. The first technique is to practice dream recall. Many people say that they do not remember their dreams. In reality, everyone dreams, but not everyone remembers their dreams upon waking. To improve your dream recall, keep a notebook or a voice recorder by your bed. As soon as you wake up, before you do anything else, write down or record everything you remember about your dream, no matter how fragmentary or unclear it might seem. Over time, your brain will get better at remembering dreams, simply because you are paying attention to them. The act of paying attention to your dreams sends a signal to your brain that dreams are important and worth remembering. This creates a positive feedback loop where you remember more dreams, which encourages you to pay more attention, which helps you remember even more dreams. The second technique is to examine the emotional content of the dream. How did you feel in the dream? How did you feel when you woke up? The emotions associated with the dream are often more important than the literal content. If you dreamed about death but felt peaceful, that is very different from dreaming about death and feeling terrified. A peaceful death dream might indicate acceptance of change, while a terrifying death dream might indicate resistance and fear. Think about the emotional arc of the dream. Did the dream start fearfully and end peacefully? Or was it consistently terrifying throughout? These nuances in emotional tone can provide important clues about what your dream is trying to communicate. The third technique is to identify the symbols and metaphors in your dream. In the dream about death, what kind of death was it? Who died? What was the setting? What other symbols or images stood out to you? Each of these elements is a clue to the deeper meaning of the dream. For example, if you dreamed about your own death in a natural setting, like a forest or a meadow, that might suggest a sense of peace or acceptance about a major life change. But if you dreamed about your death in a violent or traumatic way, that might suggest that you are struggling with anxiety or resistance about a change in your life. The specific details of your dream are important. A dream about drowning is different from a dream about being hit by a car, which is different from a dream about dying of old age. Each type of death carries different symbolic weight and meaning. The fourth technique is to consider the personal associations you have with the symbols in your dream. In Jungian psychology, there are universal symbols that have similar meanings across cultures and individuals. But there are also personal symbols that have unique meanings based on your individual experiences and associations. For example, if you dream about drowning, a psychologist might suggest that drowning represents being overwhelmed or out of control. But if you happen to have had a near-drowning experience as a child, drowning in your dream might have a more specific and personal meaning related to that experience. Your personal history and experiences are the lens through which you should interpret your dreams. What does death mean to you personally? Have you experienced death in your life? Are you afraid of dying? Your personal relationship with death will shape how death appears in your dreams. The fifth technique is to ask yourself reflective questions about your dream. What is changing in my life right now? What am I anxious about? What am I resisting? What am I grieving? What part of myself am I ready to let go of? What new beginning am I entering into? By asking these questions and sitting with your answers, you can often uncover the deeper meaning of your death dreams without needing to consult an expert or a dream interpretation guide. Take time to journal about these questions. Write freely without censoring yourself. Often, the answers will emerge as you write, revealing insights about your dream that you did not consciously recognize. If you are experiencing recurring death dreams or nightmares that are causing you significant distress, there are several practical strategies that you can use to manage your anxiety and improve your sleep quality. The first strategy is to practice relaxation and stress reduction during the day. Anxiety and stress during your waking hours often translate into more intense and more negative dreams at night. By practicing yoga, meditation, deep breathing exercises, or other relaxation techniques during the day, you can reduce your overall anxiety levels and consequently experience fewer and less intense death dreams. Even just 15 minutes of daily meditation can have a significant impact on your stress levels and your dream quality. The mind and body are deeply connected, and calming your body during the day will help calm your mind at night. The second strategy is to establish a healthy sleep hygiene routine. Make sure you are getting enough sleep, going to bed, and waking up at consistent times, and avoiding stimulating activities or substances before bed. Avoid watching disturbing news or horror movies right before sleep, because your brain will incorporate this content into your dreams. The hour before bed is crucial for dream quality. Use this time to wind down, to relax, and to prepare your mind for sleep. Avoid screens if possible, as the blue light from screens can interfere with your circadian rhythm and sleep quality. Instead, read a book, take a warm bath, or practice some gentle stretching. The third strategy is to practice a technique called image rehearsal therapy. If you are experiencing recurring death nightmares, image rehearsal therapy involves writing down the nightmare in detail, then rewriting it with a different ending that is less frightening. Then, you mentally rehearse this new version of the nightmare while you are awake. Research shows that this technique can be effective in reducing the frequency and intensity of recurring nightmares. By rehearsing a less threatening version of the nightmare while you are awake, you are essentially reprogramming your brain's response to this particular dream scenario. When you encounter the nightmare again in sleep, your brain will have a new, less threatening version to reference. The fourth strategy is to reframe your death dreams. Instead of seeing a death dream as a bad omen or a source of anxiety, try to approach it with curiosity. When you wake up from a death dream, instead of ruminating on how frightening it was, try asking yourself, what is my brain trying to tell me through this dream? What am I processing or working through? By shifting your perspective from fear to curiosity, you can reduce the anxiety and potentially gain insight into your psychological state. This shift in perspective is powerful. When you move from asking, why am I having this terrible dream, to asking, what is my brain trying to teach me through this dream, you transform the dream from a source of fear into a source of wisdom. The fifth strategy is to seek professional help if needed. If you are experiencing severe nightmares, if you are losing sleep due to death, anxiety, or if your death dreams are significantly interfering with your quality of life, it is important to talk to a mental health professional. A therapist can help you explore the underlying causes of your anxiety and provide evidence-based treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia or trauma-focused therapy if needed. There is no shame in seeking professional help. In fact, doing so shows wisdom and self-care. A good therapist can help you process the underlying issues that are manifesting in your death dreams and provide you with tools for managing your anxiety. The sixth strategy is to maintain perspective about death. It might seem counterintuitive, but facing your fear of death directly through reading, reflection, or discussion can sometimes help reduce anxiety. Many people find that contemplating mortality and their own death in a structured and thoughtful way helps them make peace with the inevitable and reduces existential anxiety. This is related to the concept of mortality salience, which is when awareness of death actually leads to greater appreciation for life and more meaningful living. Some of history's greatest philosophers have argued that by acknowledging our mortality, we can live more fully and authentically. When you stop running from the fear of death, you can start living more genuinely. Perhaps the most important perspective to understand about death dreams is that they often contain wisdom about your life and your personal growth. Instead of viewing death dreams as random neurological phenomena or anxiety symptoms, you can view them as communications from your unconscious mind that are trying to help you live more consciously and authentically. Death dreams often appear at pivotal moments in our lives. When we are standing at the threshold between one chapter and the next, they signal that something needs to change, that some part of us needs to die so that a new part of us can be born. If you have been living inauthentically, staying in a job that does not fulfill you, remaining in a relationship that does not serve you, or suppressing important aspects of your identity. A death dream might be your unconscious mind's way of telling you that it is time for a change. Listen to this message. Your unconscious mind is wise, and it often knows what we need before our conscious mind is ready to admit it. The symbolic death in your dream represents the death of your old self, the version of you that has been compromised or constrained. And this symbolic death creates the space for a new, more authentic version of you to emerge. This process can feel frightening because change is inherently uncertain. We do not know what comes after the death of the old self. We do not know if we will be okay on the other side of this transformation. But this is exactly why the fear in the death dream is so valuable. It is telling you that you are standing at the edge of something significant, and you are being invited to step into it. The fear is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign that you are about to grow. Throughout history, across cultures and spiritual traditions, the death and rebirth symbol has been one of the most powerful symbols of transformation. The phoenix rising from its ashes, the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly, Jesus rising from the dead, the concept of being born again, the shamanic death and rebirth journey. These are all expressions of the same fundamental truth. In order to grow, something has to die. In order to evolve, we have to let go of who we were. The death dreams that frighten you in the night are actually invitations to evolution and growth. They are showing you where you have stagnated, where you have compromised yourself, and where you are capable of transformation. When you understand this, you can wake up from a death dream, not in panic, but with gratitude and curiosity. You can ask yourself, what is ready to die in my life? What old patterns, beliefs, relationships, or versions of myself am I ready to release? What new version of myself is waiting to be born? As we reach the end of this journey through the world of death dreams, let me bring us back to where we started. You had a death dream. You woke up in fear, convinced that it meant something terrible was about to happen. But now you know the truth. That dream was not a prediction of your death. It was not an evil omen or a curse. It was a message from your unconscious mind about the changes and transformations that are happening in your life. Death dreams are among the most powerful and meaningful dreams that we experience, precisely because they touch on our deepest fears and our most existential concerns. But they are also among the most misunderstood dreams, because our culture often treats them as harbingers of doom rather than as opportunities for growth and self-understanding. The truth is that death dreams are gifts. They are your brain and your unconscious mind trying to help you live more authentically, more consciously, and more meaningfully. They are showing you where you have stagnated and inviting you to evolve. They are processing your fears and your anxieties so that you can move through life with more resilience and more courage. When you change your relationship to death dreams, you change your relationship to yourself. You move from a place of fear and superstition to a place of curiosity and self-understanding. You recognize that the symbols in your dreams are not mystical predictions, but rather windows into your own psyche. You understand that the fear and anxiety in your death dreams are signaling something important about your waking life that deserves your attention. As you move forward from this video, I encourage you to keep a dream journal. Pay attention to your dreams, especially your death dreams. Ask yourself the reflective questions that we discussed. Explore the symbols and emotions in your dreams with curiosity rather than fear. And remember that you are the ultimate expert on your own dreams. Trust your intuition, honor your emotions, and allow your dreams to guide you toward greater understanding and authenticity in your life. Death dreams are not something to be feared. They are something to be understood, appreciated, and learned from. They are part of the remarkable and mysterious process through which your mind processes reality, works through your emotions, and prepares you for the growth and transformation that life requires. So the next time you wake up from a death dream, do not panic. Do not spend the day convinced that something terrible is about to happen. Instead, pause, breathe, and with curiosity and openness, ask yourself, what is this dream trying to tell me? What am I processing? What is ready to change in my life? And most importantly, what new version of myself is ready to be born? In the answer to these questions lies the true wisdom and power of death dreams. These are the insights that your unconscious mind has been working so hard to deliver to you. These are the messages that can transform your understanding of yourself and your life. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of dreams, death, transformation, and the incredible wisdom of the human psyche. I hope this video has transformed the way you understand your death dreams and the way you experience them in the future. Sweet dreams.